Oh, today I'm talking about David Cronenberg's or David Grindelwald's Crimes of Future Past. I guess it's like this is in the Harry Potter series. Very strange film for a Harry Potter movie. I did not expect to see all those things coming. I was really quite shocked. It was horrifying. I don't know. I couldn't believe that they got David Cronenberg, body horror guy to do a Harry Potter movie. Oh fuck, excuse me. Still getting over COVID. Okay, no, not really. It's not a Harry Potter movie, obviously. Crimes of the Future is a movie that without even looking it up, I probably could already imagine that it got pretty bad user reviews and gets decent critic reviews. I'm gonna look up the Rotten Tomatoes right now. Rotten Tomato Tomatoes. I might just have to scrap this whole review because my throat is fucked up. Oh yeah, 78 for the critics, I assume, and 50% for audience score, which is exactly what I would expect. I think the movie is great. If you like art and you like movies, this is a good movie. And now, when I say those things, I don't mean you like to go to a movie and like you can't. I don't think you can be someone who really watches a lot of rom coms. Like you can't be a traditional moviegoer. You have to like film as an art form, not as a tool to feel good. Oh, because there's not a lot to feel good in this movie. And there's not things to feel bad about. I mean, unless the body horror stuff freaks you out. And I've seen other Cronenberg films. This one is pretty mild. And if you really need to, I mean, you can, like, shut your eyes for some of the more gross stuff. But it's not disgusting. It's not, like, hostile. Like, David Cronenberg's body horror is born out of story necessity. I mean, obviously, it's like what he does in all of his films, right? So there's something about the author that is contributing to putting these elements in the film, but they always have a story justification that is interesting to be explored. So in an earlier film that I've seen by Mr. Cronenberg is Existenz, which is not a penis enhancing movie, but it's actually a film with like Jude Law and blonde girl who I don't remember the name of, and basically it's like a living organism that you plug into your spine, and that brings you into like a Second Life-esque video game. And I just remember one part of the movie where uh, Jude Law takes apart his dinner at a restaurant and turns it into like a gun and assassinates somebody, I think. Very strange film. That one, I not really sure how much the body horror contributes into it, or like the body transformation, because it's body horror. I feel like is an offensive term for this type of art, honestly, because I feel like it looks at the body in a very one-dimensional way. To say body horror, and I use the term too, right? And I'm going to use the term throughout the review. But intellectually speaking, the term body horror is offensive to use, I feel like, with this kind of film, because there's nothing scary about the movie. In the movie's context, the characters' bodies are and their society are adapting to changes within the body. So you have a regular way that you expect the body to be, and then you have, aberrations, and these aberrations are what the, body horror is. But the reality is that in our world, that people are born with these aberrations all the time. So to call these kinds of movies with physical body aberrations body horror, we're essentially saying that people who are born different are horrifying. They're horrors. They're things to be afraid of, and that's quite fucked up, And I think that's what good art does. Is that it reveals something perverse about the society that creates it. There's something else I want to talk about in the film, namely the way the plot and elements of the plot are revealed in that it doesn't follow a kind of normal movie structure. Like, nobody ever talks about the plot except, like, everybody has their own very narrow view of the movie world, the diegetic environment, and then that's how they talk about things going on. So as the audience, we are privy to many characters' perspectives, and we can piece together a narrative, but the movie never like tells us a narrative. Not in the movie. Now, obviously, metatextually, the film is edited in a way to lead us to a narrative. You know, like we are, the director, the editing is being chosen. They're making decisions to show us things to believe a narrative. So in the film, there's like factions. There is a faction of people who want to embrace new organs being generated in human bodies. That's essentially the main problem in this society is people's organs are just they're just growing new organs and they're supposedly non-functional. That's the big thing. Now, as you watch the film, you'll kind of start to question that, oh, is it because people are removing their organs so they're not allowed the chance to develop? Is there commercial capitalist interests that are trying to stymie the development of these new organs for whatever reasons? Because the new organs might alleviate some illnesses or some problems that these companies benefit by existing. For example, this is huge spoilers. Huge spoilers, okay? But the first person we're shown in the movie eats plastic, and he was born with this ability. I guess he doesn't like normal food? This is important because that character's father, this is a child by the way, that character's father got surgery on his organs so that he could eat plastic. So in this world, and we're never shown like, you know, a giant plastic field of plastic, like the world's getting polluted. Like there is no big messaging in the film about these kinds of things that like try to hit you over the head like, oh, plastic pollution bad. It's just that in this world, and like our own, probably, plastic is a problem, but there is this bio-fantastical element where people are developing new organs, and one such child was born who can eat plastic and survive off eating plastic. Unfortunately, the mom did not understand the child and thought that he was like just awful, you know. And in this moment, I can imagine like, oh yeah, you know, this has to be really stressful on the parent, you know, like she's probably got to go to doctor visits, you know, she's losing her mind, and it's like the worst thing ever. Your child is eating plastic, and it's just like, and they won't stop, and they don't even like seem to engage with you like a human being, like you really are an alien. So she ends up killing her son. And so the dad of this child, he's like out of the film for like a long time until like the last 45 minutes. And then he shows up and he basically wants his son to be autopsied in public so that people can see that he had the ability to digest plastic. And then, so this is like the climax of the movie, and it turns out one of the characters messed with his corpse to label his organs as if he had organ surgery to chew plastic, to discredit the plastic eater faction, essentially. Now, mind you, this stuff happens in the micro scale. It's not like we're seeing, oh, newspaper plastic eaters deal huge blow when they find out their star child is really... No, it's just you have to infer this. You have to do the inferences in the movie to understand what's going on. The movie doesn't like directly tell you. And then, so I think it's implied that, I don't even remember who, somebody did that. Somebody fucked them up. So then there's two other factions. There's the government, and the government just kind of wants to get a control on things. And the government is represented by, um, like, black police investigator man. And he has a man on the inside. And the man on the inside who he's working with is Viggo Mortensen's character, who is the main character, and he's an artist. And Viggo Mortensen's performance is amazing. So in the beginning of the movie, it's established that he has like this problem digesting. So he has this like silly chair that like rocks his body around to help him digest foods. It's fucking hilarious. And throughout the film, he never lets you forget that he has this problem. So there'll be moments in a scene where he just has like a neck fit. It is probably one of Viggo Mortensen's greatest performances. I mean, it probably sounds kind of silly to say, but the film establishes things and then doesn't forget them. It has them in there. Okay, so I'm probably boring the fuck out of you right now, so let's talk about something funny. So at one point, Viggo Mortensen and his like love interest slash like artist lady who does like the autopsies on his body, because that's like an art thing, is that like he gets his organs removed and it's like a new age art thing, and they have this like weird autopsy machine that looks like it was made in fucking Alien Prometheus movie or some shit. And they go to this like new organ registry, which is not a government organization, but they're trying to be. And first they talk to him and they're kind of standoffish, and then they invite those people to like one of main characters like organ removal things, and Kristen Stewart is like so horny about this, and she's like, oh, it's like sex, the autopsy is sex, you're having sex in front of everyone, and that's how she says it too. It's wild. And then if you watch the trailer, there's like a part where she's like trying to identify his organs to like register them or something, and she's like pushing it in, and it's like all erotic, and she's like, oh, and it is amazing. And then she like wants to like bang Viggo Mortensen, but Viggo Mortensen is like, oh, I'm not good with like the old sex or like the old ways. So like regular sex isn't even like a thing. Like the only way that they get off is like eroticizing non-erotic things. Like the main character joins like a runway show for displaying new organs that's like just like a one-off thing. And then when he comes home, Caprice, I think is maybe her name, the person who does the autopsies on him, she like unzips his thing and starts like sucking off his like gut window. I mean, there are just parts in the movie that you just got to start laughing, and so those parts are great. The women in the movie are awesome. I don't feel like the movie intentionally keeps you so far in the dark, except for like one scene. There's one scene where a character puts a plastic bar on the table and another person eats it, and then that person just starts dying. Even and you don't know it's a plastic bar at this point, but later on you come to find out it's a plastic bar. And there's like these corporate stooge characters who you think are just like repair people. They're two women, and then they have like erotic sex at one point in one of the autopsy machines. They're just like, oh well, everything's repaired here. Time to bang in the autopsy machine, because they're like so horny for this like old tech. It's fucking weird. And then, but it never felt like gratuitous. Like it didn't feel like the director was horny. Like I've seen a lot of movies where it just feels like an excuse for the director or writer's perversion. And I didn't get that here. Here it felt like I'm watching a society that is so disturbed and so kind of alien to me that I'm struggling to relate, and that's a good thing. That's good sci-fi. This is the movie that is closest to Zardoz. And Zardoz is the greatest sci-fi movie of all time for one reason. And that reason is because it makes you feel like you don't understand what the culture. It has humans in the movie, but the human culture is so alien in terms of just their mannerisms and everything that you don't understand what the interactions are, other than the fact that they still use the English language. And that is how sci-fi should be. Sci-fi should show you a world you don't understand, and with your own context, you can understand the world and attain a unique kind of meaning by seeing another culture and then filtering it through your own, but then recognizing that and then kind of like unfiltering it from your culture and understanding the characters in the movie better. And it creates a kind of like conscious awakening in yourself. And I feel like films like this do that. It's very important, I feel, to have art be this way. Most art obviously isn't this way. Most art is fucking boring. Most art tells you, wears itself on its sleeve so blatantly. There's not, I guess, really much else to say. The music was great. There's not like a lot of tracks, but the music was great. The camera work was great because there's not a lot of cutting, and in most scenes, the camera is in one spot, and then maybe it'll like move, but it doesn't cut a lot. In most scenes, the camera does not cut as well, which is a stylistic choice that I love. I do not like movies where the camera cuts all the time. That being said, I have to point out that there is a moment when characters are looking through a book, and it's like a book of like organs or something, and one of the characters reaches over the book, and it cuts to the book, and the camera moves fast to the right, and that's the only time the camera moves in the whole movie like that. Every other time the camera either moves slowly or cuts to a new angle of a shot, but it never moves that fast. Like, it's very strange. So to me, the actor, like, he must have hit the camera, or the camera person holding it must have like moved out of the way of the actor's hand, and they just like kept that in because they didn't have another shot to cut to for that scene to continue. So that's like the one camera fuck up that I think is a fuck up based on the aforementioned reasons. But otherwise, I thought it was great. The performances are great. The mystery is pretty interesting. The movie ends quite abruptly, which probably makes a lot of people mad. I was like, yes, great, yes, just end here, because like the movie is quite long. It's almost 2 hours long, and basically a lot of shit happens. Like, people get assassinated, all these like essentially like twists are revealed, and then the movie just ends. And it's like, oh, like all of these things that I saw are gonna have like a pretty, like, they really kind of buy you into thinking about the world and the lingering impacts that what you saw will have on this world, because it is very much like you get a narrow view of the world from a few characters who represent different organizations, essentially. Not like a stand-in, like, hi, I represent the government and I represent this. Like the policeman, because they have like a pretty multiracial cast of people, and I think it's interesting that I think he also has an accent, I believe. So it causes you to question and think of like, oh, is this America? What is this society? I mean, they're speaking English, so probably, but then it's like also very strange with the organs and the sex and things. So like, is it America? I don't fucking know. Is this even our regular world? I mean, they have generally regular things, but it seems like the society is mostly skewing towards this like dilemma of organs. That's what it, like, the government is like setting up this whole thing to deal with this like moral crisis of these new organ developments, and what that's going to mean for everyone, and basically it's like evolution, and you have some people, even artists, who are articizing their new organ growth, and they're denying it by removing the organs, and some people view that as like an offense. There's lots of interesting things. It's such a rich film. I think it's great. I don't have anything really more to say, I suppose. But yeah, I think if you can look over the body modification elements, it's a very funny film too. You have to be into like dry black humor, but it's very funny in that way. and that there's just a lot to chew on. Everything just gives you something to chew on, and it is so silly. It never felt like the scenes went on for too long. It felt like a lot of the times like it was almost overindulgent, almost. Um, but then you kind of like you appreciate the time. I appreciate the time in films where you're just like left to think, and the film kind of forces you to do that. Films need breathing room, and this film has lots of breathing room because there's just that there's such a cost to it. Like there's just so much artistry in like all the weird techno organ bio shit that is in the film. Like this film and Dune both have like really good background prop artistry. Although it doesn't look cheap like his other films, but there's a kind of quality to it that draws attention to the things that are novel to the audience's eyes. That is, I can't put my finger on. I really can't. But for me, this is like a perfect movie because I like the way it deals with fiction and fantasy, in that it shows you a world that is fantastical and then doesn't like have a fish out of water person. One of the people, the main person that we watch is a fish in water. He's a part of one of the groups, but he's also kind of working for another group. Like he has his life in so many different avenues, and I wouldn't even be able to totally predict his actions going forward. I don't really know, and I feel like that's a pretty interesting character that you could debate where he'll land on the issue. And that's kind of ultimately where the film ends, is that where does the viewer land on the issue of the plastic and new organ, different factions? Like, do you join the artists who are removing the organs? Do you align with the people who are championing this in like a kind of more perverse way, which are also part of the group that remove the organs? Or are you like pro new organs and let them develop as like a kind of human evolution, and then also let those new organs exist as a tool to pay our sins on the earth, which is kind of like the plastics? Or do you think like, oh, the capitalist corporation people like trying to kill the other groups? Like, do you think that they're trying to preserve something? Obviously not. They're the people that are 100% in the wrong. The government seems to be overlooking those assassinations. They seem to probably kind of want that because they want to know what's going on with these new groups, because the new groups could threaten them. And the government doesn't care about the corporations because the corporations serve no threat to the government authority because they're already aligned in their interests. So it's a very interesting political and economic system that exists in the film that warrants conversation and discussion. And I think it's unfortunate because most people probably don't get there. Most people are probably just like, ending explained, please. Please, I'm really lost. And I feel like that's a really wrong way to watch the film. Anyway, my throat is dying, so that is all for my review. Thank you. Fuck. Thank you for hanging out.